Hey everybody, and welcome to our early comics review video. I'm Andy.
I'm Matt.
We're here with Infinity Flux Comics out of Chattanooga, Tennessee. This is our bit longer show where we show you some of the biggest and best books that are coming out this week to your local comic book store, or if you shopped with us at infinityflux.net, the books are on their way to you. So we've got a really great show. This is a big week. I think, the number of books, yes, but also just the caliber of the books.
Yeah, what the books are, what the stories are.
Yeah, they all fell.
They all fell this week.
This week. So we've got a lot of really great stuff to go through.
And just real quick, wanted to say too that we still have not gotten one of our boxes, containing some of the books. So we won't have all of the variant covers. We are missing some variants on some books. But everything you see on the show is available on the website right now. And all the variants that we don't have will be there by Wednesday.
Yes. So let's get into this week's grandiose show.
Yeah, we are going to start with Blood Hunt number 2. This is the next issue after Blood Hunt number 1. I don't. Yeah.
Whoa, dropping some facts.
Yeah, I know, right? So this one is a nice follow up. Now, I will say real quick, reading this one kind of solidifies to me how important Doctor Strange number 15 was a couple weeks ago, because that book was a nice bridge between these two. If you haven't read Doctor Strange number 15, you might be a little bit confused as to why he's in the predicament that he's in. But this one is really good. Before we get to the story, let's go ahead and say that the difference between this and the Red Band one that we have here, we'll go ahead and tell you that now. The Red Band one has one extra page. So issue 1 had 2 extra pages, but it was larger of an issue. This is just a regular size. So one extra page and maybe about 3 or 4 different panels that are a little bit bloodier and gorier.
Yeah.
But
I still think the Red Band one was better. The art for some of the things was, like we said in the first one, just intensifies the stakes of the story.
Yeah. I still recommend the Red Band version, but just wanted to go ahead and let you know right up front what the differences are in case you were confused about which one to get. But as far as the story goes, we have 2 different groups of heroes trying to make their way to the Sanctum Sanctorum. We've got Hunter's Moon, Tigra, and Spider-Man, Miles Morales. They're trying to get there, and we also have Dracula and Bloodline. They are in New York after the events of the Dracula Blood Hunt number 1 tie-in. So all these groups are trying to converge on the Sanctum Sanctorum to get Doctor Strange's help. But if you read Doctor Strange number 15, you know that he's not quite himself.
Yeah, he really needs to pull himself together.
Yeah, he's feeling blue. But they all know, hey, we got to get there because we need help with this vampire problem. And we also get a nice rematch between the Avengers and the Blood Coven. I won't tell you how that all plays out, but it's a really cool fight.
The Avengers are definitely more prepared this time.
Yeah, they know what they're up against now. And that's a really cool fight, too. And then by the time you get to the end of the issue, all of our main players for the main story, so Avengers and the other characters I mentioned, they are all together. And I'm assuming that the next issue is going to be, what do we do? How do we fix this problem? How do we take care of all these vampires and bring the sun back to the world? That kind of thing. I will say there is a surprise ending, just like the ending of last issue was a surprise. There is another surprise here. And then, I just want to sing the praises of Pepe Larraz's artwork, because this story is good, but his artwork elevates it to great because everything just looks so great. The action and just everything about it. Just another really good. I love the first one. I really like this one too. This one, Blood Hunt number 2. Just a great, solid next issue to this series. So we do have some variants. We've got, like I showed you, we have the Red Band variant, which again has just one extra page and a few different panels. And then we have this Baldion variant. And there is this E.M. Geist variant. And then a Peach Momoko variant with Scarlet Witch, who is not in this issue. And
she's mentioned.
Yeah, she's mentioned. And then a 1 in 25 Kale New variant, which is amazing, that we're selling for $29.99.
Yeah, I really like Dracula in the series. I just think he's a cool character with a cool perspective. I really like, Brielle Bloodline in this one. When she sees Miles, she's like, oh, actually somebody I know.
Right.
because she hasn't met all the other ones. I just thought it was very well crafted in all the characters and how they fit into this story.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad they're all together now because the first couple issues have been, oh my gosh, there's this threat. We got to get everybody we can together, but now they are together. So I'm looking forward to now that they are together. What is the next step in all
Yes.
this?
So, first up for me is a book I really enjoyed. This is Spider-Gwen, the Ghost Spider. And this is really great. So, this is written by Stephanie Phillips, and the art is by Frederici Manson. And I really like Ghost Spider going into this. I was reading Edge of the Spider-Verse when she first premiered, and I've pretty much read everything with her since. I gotta say, this is out of all the stuff, kind of what I've been waiting for. I like the stuff where she's in her own universe, but in this, she's in the 616, and it just feels good to have her in the fold with everything else.
I agree with that too because it's always felt because every big story that she's been in has been mixing it up in the 616, and it's just always felt like they have to think of arbitrary ways to get her in the 616. It's like, let's just put her over there because she spends most of her time with those guys anyway. Let's just move her over there and just tell fun stories.
Yeah. So why is she in the 616? That's kind of part of the mystery. A part of it was teased in the Web of Spider-Man issue, where we saw the TVA, the Time Variance Authority, basically be like, you need to go to this other universe. And when this begins, there's been a little bit of time where she's kind of established herself a little bit in the 616. We don't know what is the need for her to go over there. And maybe the series is going to explore that coming up, but at least not in this issue. But even though Gwen's in the 616, where she has been before, and she knows a few people there because of Spider-Verse related stuff, she is not allowed by the TVA to reveal herself, not even to Peter or Miles, the people she knows. She's not allowed to suit up. She's definitely not allowed to go around doing superheroing things. She's having a hard time because she even tries to go get a bank account, but she has no social security number.
Yeah.
She doesn't have an official name. It's not been an easy transition for her to this universe. But of course, she's a hero, and when danger arises, she just can't help but intervene. And it doesn't take long before the word that there's a new spider person in the city to spread. We even see like Silk react to it and be like, good for her, and stuff like that. It's really fun. But a lot of this is Gwen kind of making that transition into the 616 and uh, how is she trying to not use her powers, and then she ends up using them. Now there's some other little mysteries going on that I think are actually super interesting. Is this is the universe where there was the original Gwen Stacy, where she died, and Spider-Gwen knows about this Gwen Stacy and has some kind of weird connection with that. I'm not going to go into detail about what or why or whatever. We don't know a whole lot, but I do think that gives a little edge to this that is building a bigger, deeper story for the character. So I'm very excited to see what happens with this series. We're just getting started, and this is definitely an issue one.
Yeah.
It's a lot of establishing things, but I'm excited to see where it goes and see how she eventually gets integrated into the larger.
I will say though, it's an issue one, but it does do something that I think all issue one should do, and it got its hooks in me right away.
Yeah.
There's like 2 or 3 different big action pieces. She mixes it up against a classic Spider-Man villain,
Yeah.
one of my favorites. So I was really cool to see that happen. But an issue one, like needs to like grab you right away.
Yeah.
A lot of issue ones now like part of a really long story, and it's like you got to wait till issue 6 to get to this stuff. And this like hooked me within the first couple pages. So
Yeah,
props
there's not
to
just
that.
one fight in this. There's multiple scenes of her in action set
Yeah.
pieces that are very, very cool. And yes, there's kind of a mystery too to a Spider-Man villain in this, and how do they know about her?
Yeah, how do they know? Why are they there? Why do they care? Like that kind of thing. Yeah, there's some, and it's more than just action. Like there's some character development. It's this mystery about this other villain, this connection that she has, and with the other Gwen Stacy and her dealing with not really knowing her place on this new Earth. Like lots of stuff here to chew on.
Yeah. So that being said, great number one. And if you're a fan of Spider-Gwen, this will a great place. You're going to continue reading it here. If you're new to the, this is still a pretty good jumping on point. There's a few little things about her being from another universe and all of that, but for the most part, this is her part, you know, in a new neighborhood. So check it out. Amazing Mark Brooks A cover. I mean, great number one cover to kick it off with. And this had some of the best covers in a while. So we've got the Jenny Frison variant. We've got this Lopez vampire variant. We've got this Villalobos variant. We've got this really nice foil Souza.
Yeah, I like
variant.
that one a lot. The
Very
foil looks
cool.
really good.
And we have this 1 in 50 Villalobos variant we're selling for $34.99.
Yeah, great first issue. I was really, I've always liked Ghost Spider, but I was just pleasantly surprised by how much I enjoyed it. I really liked it.
Yeah, and thinking about it too, it's like I always, you know, incorporate her and thinking about the Marvel universe and everything, but thinking like I guess we haven't seen her on like a big 616 team or anything.
Yeah.
It's all been very Spider related, and I would like to see her, you know, interact with a lot of the classic characters.
Yeah. Well, we're going to do one more Blood Hunt book. We're going to talk about Union Jack the Ripper Blood Hunt number 1. This is the only Blood Hunt tie-in that comes out this week. Obviously, we have Blood Hunt number 2, which is the main book. But this is written by Kevin Scott. The art is by Kev Walker. Now, just to let you know, I would say that this is of low importance to the main
I
story.
feel like we should have a big meter that's like Blood Hunt's at the top, and you move like a little Dracula head up.
Right. Yeah, because like Doctor Strange number 15, like that's almost like Blood Hunt number part 1.5, right? That was pretty high importance. This one doesn't really inject anything into the main story. It doesn't really bring any new solutions to what they're going to do or anything like that. This is pretty self-contained to, you know, this one small group of characters where they are in Manchester in the UK. It starts out with just this group of people running from a group of vampires, and Union Jack shows up to help them out. He's not really a nice guy though. He's like, you know, he's fighting the vampires, and they're like, "Aren't you gonna, you know, come with us to help us get wherever?" And he's like, "No, you just run. I'm gonna." And he's like, he's not happy about being there, but he does help them out. But through certain circumstances, he does wind up going with the group and actually taking them back to his base, his hideout. So they hole up there for a while. They patch up their injuries, that kind of thing, try to make plans for what their next move is going to be. But they soon find something in his own hideout that is very surprising. And I'll just leave it at that. So yeah, like I said, very localized to just where they are. You know, they're not even in, you know, they're on the other side of the ocean, basically. So, you know, just dealing with their own fallout from this Blood Hunt event. I will say too, just real quick, if you're confused about a couple of the characters or a couple of things that are mentioned in this book, if I think a lot of it was, or I think going back to, and reading the 5-issue The Union miniseries from 2020, that would help fill in on a couple of who the couple of the characters are. So I might go back and read that because there was somebody else in here who has been around before, but I didn't know who it was at all. So going back and reading that might help. But yeah, just a solid you know, tie into Blood Hunt if you just want to know what's going on in another part of the world while everybody else is in New York trying to deal with the main threat, then this might be the book for you. So we have this A cover right here, and we have this Philip Tan.
I like that. That's a really cool cover. Yeah. It's almost like a Punisher cover or something. Right. Okay, next up, speaking of spider people, we got the main man right here. It's Amazing Spider-Man number 50. Now, this was a big one. This is a big one. This one is a $9.99 book.
But it's a thick book.
It's a thick book. And this has been, you know, we've been speculating on what's going to happen in this one for a while. That being said, I can't talk too much about it because a lot of it is spoilers. Now, the things I will say, we've got the storyline of the living brain that's been going on for a couple of issues. That's kind of a big part in here. and it's been sending out messages, like little ticker tape messages.
Yeah.
Now, I won't say what the ticker tape messages say, but it's very interesting for the identity of Spider-Man. I'll leave that there. You can also tell by the cover that Spider-Man and Green Goblin are fighting. This does see the return of Green Goblin in a very fun way because the highlight of this issue is Ed McGuinness's art. You're going to see some of the biggest fight scenes you've ever seen between Spider-Man and Green Goblin, literally taking up 2 pages for only 2 characters.
This issue is a visual splendor.
Yeah.
The colors, the artwork, the action, big action. And it's not just like 1 or 2 times, like it's all throughout the book. Big. I mean, most of the book is just this cover.
Yeah.
But bigger. It's visually, it's a
You'll have
masterpiece.
Green Goblin's head taking up the majority of one page.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
So that, if any reason to buy it, it's for Ed McGuinness's amazing art. It's for sure the my favorite part of this entire issue. There's a lot of stuff that goes on here that's continuations of a lot of the stories we've seen previous, especially dealing with the sins of Norman Osborn.
Yeah.
Where do they reside? What's been going on with Norman this whole time? Some great stuff retroactively with Peter, where why has he been working with Norman Osborn? And that's explained.
Yep.
And it's not because Spider-Man's a dummy.
Yeah.
He has his reasons. So that's all really great. There's some changes that happen to the living brain that I won't get into, but are pretty interesting. And this is as much a, like big issue 50, big fight scene, as it is setting up a lot of future stories, including, I'll say, you do not see the Spider Goblin in this. So,
right.
We'll let you know when Spider Goblin makes their first appearance.
Although we do know how we're going to get there.
Right.
We don't see the Spider Goblin, but because of what happens in this issue, you're like, oh,
it is a stepping stone.
Yeah.
This is definitely leading into that story without going into any detail. Now, this is also a big issue because there are some backup stories. So we've got a really pretty story by Marv Wolfman and Terry Dodson around Black Cat. We have one about food and donuts, and it's a very interesting
It made me hungry.
By Nikesh Shukla and Chris Cross. We've got a really interesting one with very stylized art by Lee Gatlin that features The Thing and Rhino. We have a Joe Kelly and Juan Ferreira story with Doctor Strange. That's kind of one of those like to be continued question mark type things. That's really weird. And then finally, there's kind of a post-credit scene of the first story written by Zeb Wells with art by Todd Knock that explores a little bit more about the living brain. So a lot in this issue. It'll take you a decent amount of time to read it, but most of it is just going to be you staring at the art and the big old fight scenes that are so fun. So we've got this great Ed McGuinness cover here. Now, I believe some of the variants for this ones are in our missing box.
Right.
So we've only got a couple of them here, but we've got our A cover here. We've also got this really wonderful John Tyler Christopher negative space variant with the black suit. We've got this 1 in 25 Bradshaw variant we're selling for $19.99 while supplies last. And we have this 1 in 50 Ramita Senior variant. So some pretty classic Spider-Man that we're selling for at $39.99.
Yeah, and there are other variants that it's a combination of. We're missing a box, and we've already done all the pulls, so some of them have already been accounted for.
Yeah.
So yeah.
You can see everything we have in stock over at infinityflux.net.
Yeah. All right, so next is Rook Exodus number 2, and holy cow, I love this book so much. This is definitely my favorite Ghost Machine book. Obviously, Geiger, Redcoat, all of them are great.
That's saying something because they're all good.
Yeah, they're all great, but this one is just maybe one step above. I just, it just resonates with me so much. So in this one, we finally do see Direwolf. We didn't see her in the first issue, although we did see her in the Ghost Machine, like the preview book from a few months back. But she is in this issue, and she is searching for Rook. But while she's doing that, Rook is trying to get the last part that he needs to complete his ship so that he can get off of planet Exodus, because that's his whole goal, right? He wants to get off the planet. And the sequence where he goes to get that part, it's really cool. It does feature him diving underwater, doing some underwater stuff, which is really cool. And the whole time, he's kind of worried because he hasn't heard from his friend Swine. He's the warden who has like the pig helmet who can control boars and stuff. He hasn't heard from him in a few days, and he's starting to wonder, if I get my ship ready and I still haven't heard from him, should I just leave the planet? Should I just leave him behind? Because he doesn't really want to leave the planet. Swine doesn't really want to leave the planet anyway. So he's like, maybe I should just leave him. So he doesn't really know what to do. Direwolf does eventually find Rook, and she does deliver some bad news to him, but she also makes him a proposition that he doesn't really want to go along with. She makes him an offer, and he can refuse it apparently.
Yeah.
No, but he doesn't really want to go along with it. But then there's a great action sequence with Ursaw. Who is the big bear guy that has the bear helmet that can control the big bears that we saw at the end of last
Really
issue.
big bears.
Really big bears. And that
Bears
whole
with missile launchers on their backs.
that whole bears with freaking lasers, that whole action sequence was great, and that's one of the things I love about this book is obviously the artwork by Jason Fabok, but the tech and the vehicles and the weapons and the environment.
Just what's the next weird thing you're gonna see?
Yeah,
it's always like you turn the page like, oh, whoa.
Yeah, it's it's a little bit GI Joe. It's a little bit post apocalyptic. It's just so much cool stuff just to look at. And the end of the book sets up what I think will be the main story going forward. And yeah, I mean, it's just don't want to spoil anything, but it's phenomenal. It's absolutely wonderful. I love it so much. And cannot wait for the next issue. So we have our A cover right there.
We do also learn some interesting things about the Wardens. And,
right.
And what the relationship with each other is.
Yeah.
And
because the Wardens can sort of kind of control the animals with their helmet, but that's a two-way street.
Yeah.
And what is that like for the Wardens when it comes back to them?
Yeah.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that.
Yeah, there's a lot there that I don't want to give away.
Yeah.
But there's some discussions between Direwolf and Rook that kind of expand on some of the ideas of the Wardens that are out there.
And Direwolf is awesome.
Yeah.
Like, she is just, her design's cool, the way she carries herself is cool, like everything
about
about
she uses the wolves.
Yeah.
What she kind of takes from them is really cool.
It's fantastic. So there's our A cover, and then we have this I believe that's Ivan Rice just doing a big old headshot variant.
Well, next up for me, it's Superman.
Hey.
This is Superman number 14, or House of Brainiac Part 4, if you're naughty. So this is a really great issue. I've been loving House of Brainiac so far. And in the previous Action Comics issue, we saw that Lobo kind of got a proposition from the other Zarnians about, like, do you want to be our leader?
He got an offer that he couldn't refuse.
Yeah.
I'm gonna work a Godfather reference in every book.
And because of that, him and Superman are now kind of at odds, in the at odds way, as in they're hitting each other in the face. So the beginning of this is a great fight sequence between Lobo and Superman. I love that Superman also does. They're on a kind of a space station or whatever.
Yeah.
And Superman basically is like, let's take this outside, which is super cool. So part of this is Superman versus Lobo and the other Zarnians. The other part of this is Supergirl kind of trying to save Lex Luthor, but also being like, you need to give me some answers to what's going on. And we've known this whole time that Luthor he knows more than he's leading on. And he kind of starts to unveil that to Supergirl as how does he know kind of what Brainiac's plan is? And how does he know that Brainiac's plan is going to fail? Because there's something about Brainiac we saw previously that he kind of glitches out when he tries to do certain things. And Luthor knows why this is. It's really interesting. But Brainiac is getting to the final stages of creating his Brainiac Queen. And we'll say this is, I guess you would say, the first appearance of the Brainiac Queen.
Yeah, you probably first full appearance,
First
I
full
think. Yeah.
appearance. But what I wasn't expecting is how dangerous she
She is
is.
very menacing. Yes.
Especially when you've seen her on some of the covers, she's kind of like hovering there, kind of like a heroic or angelic pose or
Mhm.
whatever. She's pretty horrifying in
Yeah.
this. So, all that being said, great issue, and I can't wait to see what's coming up next because it's one of those things we know she's going to be involved with absolute
Absolute
power.
power.
That's now even more horrifying,
Yes.
knowing what we know after reading this issue. And can anyone stop her? Because it's not looking good for Superman and the Super Family.
Yeah.
So, really great issue. We've got our A cover right here. We also have this Cohen variant with Lois Lane. We've got this Johnson variant with Superman versus Brainiac. And we also have this 1 in 25 Hill variant we're selling for $14.99.
All right. Next for me is White Boat #1. This is a new book from Distillery, and it is my favorite Distillery book so far. I thought this was fantastic. Written by Scott Snyder. The art is by Francesco Francavilla. Those two together doing a horror book. Just you don't get better than that. So it's about this guy named Lee Derry, and he's just kind of down on his luck guy. He's a writer. He lives in the Florida Keys. He sort of writes these what he calls puff pieces for like nautical magazines, right? It's all about sailing. He's all about
A puff piece for a nautical magazine is pretty light.
yeah. He's all about being on the water and that kind of thing, boats and all that stuff. Because when he was young, his father used to take him and his brother out on their boat every weekend, and he said they would go way out in the ocean, and him and his brother would just have a great time together while his father would fish and stuff like that. Well, one night when they were young, during one of these weekend excursions out on the boat, a giant wave came and capsized their boat, and his brother was lost to the ocean, basically. Like he died basically. And they just couldn't find him. He said it took like an hour for the Coast Guard to get to them. Lee and his father made it off the boat, but they couldn't get his brother out in time, and he was gone. So back in the present, where this book takes place when Lee is an adult now, he receives a mysterious invitation to go take a tour on this gigantic yacht called the White Boat. And he was talking about there's like through the narration, it's like, this some yachts, there are some yachts that cost $500,000 and some that cost millions of dollars. He said the White Boat is rumored to cost like $3 billion. It's just massive. And a lot of what we see in this is what we saw in the Devil's Cut one shot that came out several months back that gave us little glimpses into a bunch of the different distillery books. So a lot of that is in this, not like exactly the same pages, like the artwork's all different, but the idea is the same. Where the upper, he starts walking through the upper decks of the boat, and he's the only one there. He has a guide that takes him through part of it. And the upper decks obviously just look like this amazing giant yacht. But then he starts exploring the lower decks on his own, and that's where things get really weird. And that's what we saw in the Devil's Cut book. The hallways change, and he goes into one room, and it's an exact replica of his apartment. He goes into another room, and it's an exact replica of the little cabin that he and his brother stayed in on the boat that his dad had when they were kids. And he's like, this is super weird, and just it starts to get really, really strange down in those lower decks. It's really cool because there's all kinds of artwork and movies and music from some of the most famous people in those industries, some of the best artists and movie makers that the world has never seen. Like they were made exclusively for the White Boat.
Wow.
And, nobody knows that they exist. And there's just like so much weird stuff there. And he's unable to escape, and he's on the boat for forever. What feels like forever anyway, until they get to their destination, and then that opens up a whole other can of worms that I won't tell you about. But it's just so cool. Like I said, Snyder and Francavilla together is great. Francavilla's artwork on this is awesome. And then it's creepy. Like, what is this boat? why does it keep changing? And then there's a big mystery, and then you get to the end, and there's something else, and phenomenal. I love this one so much, so I can't wait to see what happens next. My favorite distillery book so far. So that's our A cover right there, and then we have this Francavilla variant with some really creepy stuff on it. And then we have the one that I pre-ordered. This is the Ryan Stegman variant. I will say there's not a big giant fish that eats a boat. It's nothing like that, but it's really cool though. There's a 1 in 10 Albuquerque variant that we're selling for $10.99, another Scott Snyder collaborator. And then there is a 1 in 25 Valerio variant that we're selling for $39.99. Yeah, this one was fantastic.
Well, next up, I've got a book, another one that I can't say a whole lot about because it's the final issue.
Yep.
It's Cobra Commander number 5. This is really exciting because Cobra Commander has come a long way since issue number 1. He is so close to being the Cobra Commander that we all know and love and are terrified of by this issue. So he's been stealing Mars technology and weapons, which is Destro's company, uh, basically enough to build up his own little army type thing. So that definitely comes to the attention of Destro when all of this is going on. But Cobra Commander sends out a invitation, let's meet, which is kind of funny. It's like, I've been stealing a lot of stuff from you, but you want to talk?
Yeah.
But of course, these very powerful men, that's, just kind of how they play it. But we kind of know where this is going. He's got a proposition to work together with Destro, but to see what Cobra Commander now has in place, the facilities that he has to work on this Energon, what he can offer Destro in return for his help, upgrading some of his technology is all very cool. And definitely by the end of this, you have Cobra Commander.
Yeah. Yeah.
He is Cobra Commander and he has his people. So, very awesome issue. Plus, there's a little backup by a little extra bit about Cobra Law and what's been going on there. Last we saw them was the Free Comic Book Day book where Megatron made his way out of there. He burst out.
He tore his way
tore
through.
his way out of there. And what has been going on there since then? And what does the Cobra Law people think of Cobra Commander now?
Yeah.
It's all really interesting, and it looks like we're building up another kind of faction that could pose a threat to everybody.
Yeah, that's what I thought was cool, because this is all about Cobra, and then, obviously Destro is going to figure into this, but Cobra Law is still around too, and how are they going to figure into the larger...
Also, they have a lot of the stuff that Cobra Commander left behind. And a lot of that's looking very Transformers-y.
Yeah.
So don't miss out on the last issue of Cobra Commander. It is awesome.
It's fantastic.
We're, gearing up for Scarlet and then Destro. We know it teased in the back of here in the letters page that we should be getting a big Energon Universe announcement coming up very soon before San Diego Comic-Con, and then they'll kind of talk more about it at San Diego Comic-Con. That's only like a month away. So it's a good time to be a fan of all of these properties.
Yeah. It's like we said before with Cobra Commander and Duke, and we've seen so much stuff. We are only just barely scratching the surface of everything that I think the Energon universe is going to do.
So we've got our A cover right here. We also have this really nice Santa Lucio variant. Really, that one's super sharp.
Yeah.
That moment kind of happens too, where Destro can see his reflection in Cobra Commander's helmet.
Yeah.
We have a 1 in 10 Burnham variant that we're selling for $8.99. We've got a 1 in 25 level variant we're selling for $9.99.
I love those that they're reminiscent of the card backs for the figures.
And then we have a 1 in 15 Win variant we're selling for $39.99. That's super cool.
All right, next for me is Feral, number 3, just continuing to be a really, really good series. In this one, our cats, they are continuing their journey through the woods, trying to get home, but they now have to avoid all the rabid, feral animals that they have encountered in the woods so far, and also humans who are trying to kill everything with four legs, basically, because of this outbreak that has happened. They have orders just to shoot anything, any animal. Period.
Mhm.
You know, no, don't worry about if they're infected. Just kill them all. Right. So Jonas is the cat they met last issue, who is leading them through the woods, the outdoorsy cat, telling and he tells them to he gives them all these he comes up with all these rules that are very helpful. Always stay to the trees, don't get distracted by anything shiny, don't bring in any other cats to the group or anything like that. Rules to help them keep them all safe. And Lord almost instantly breaks all of them, which is a little bit frustrating.
I was very frustrated reading and be like, oh, where is he? Oh my gosh,
Yeah,
he's
like multiple times. Where's Lord? Oh, he's doing a thing that he's going and breaking one of the rules, right?
Yeah.
So it's a little bit frustrating because it's like if you would just stick together and stay in the trees, you would have been home a long time ago. But I will say they do meet another cat who they reluctantly let into their group, even though that's one of the rules not to do. But the closer they get to home, the more dangerous it gets. And the last page there's something that you can read on the last page that is really cool, and it just sort of helps to give a little bit more information to what is even going on in the first place. So we get some good information there. But just another great issue. I mean, this is, Stray Dogs is great, Feral's great, and this is continuing on a awesome story. So there's our A cover right there, and then we have, I love this one. This is the these homage variants. This one is the cover of Megan, the movie poster Megan. We also have this 1 in 10 Fleeks and Forstner variant that we're selling for $9.99. It's the A cover, just a virgin variant.
This one's cool.
Yeah, this one's really cool. This is the one per store thank you variant. You know what that means, thank you?
Though they just send them, you don't order them or anything. It's kind of a, hey, here's extra thank you cover.
Well, yeah,
this is supporting us.
Yeah, this is like the pencil lines for the A cover.
With the blue.
Yeah, with the blue line and everything, and we're selling that for $19.99.
Next up for me, we got another big one, because that's all that came out this week is big ones.
Big books.
We have Ultimate Black Panther number 4.
It's crazy that there's so many books that came out this week that we're only just now getting to one of the Ultimate books, because those things are huge.
Yeah, Ultimate Black Panther number 4. Really interesting, because they left us on a pretty big cliffhanger last time as T'Challa with Storm and Killmonger. They took him into this weird cave, and he saw something, but we don't know what that is. Well, this actually picks up with Okoye addressing Wakanda and basically lying to them, but for their own benefit by saying that she's talked with T'Challa.
Yeah, it's a white lie, It's nothing. It's not harmful. She's just trying to keep everyone calm.
Yeah, she's trying to keep everybody calm. Be like, he's doing something really important, but I talked with him. We're all good here. But the truth is, she hasn't talked with T'Challa. Neither has Shuri. And, there's some tension there because they don't know what's happened to T'Challa. And Shuri's basically like, you're the queen, so it's your call what you do. Meanwhile, we know that T'Challa's father, T'Chaka, was assassinated in the first issue of this. The Moon Knight, the group known as Moon Knight, are not done because they send another assassin, this time after Okoye.
And I wasn't sure if it's the same assassin who took out T'Chaka or
I'm not
not.
sure
I don't know.
But I don't want to give away, and I kind of mentioned it in our shorter video. There's something very familiar about the assassin that, when you think about everything, you can see some nods to some 616 versions of things. But maybe T'Challa is not going to stay gone much longer, and there's a plan. But
he's got a plan.
He's got a plan, but it's still a very, I still don't know how they're going to deal with all of this. It seems like maybe the next issue, it'll be 5, will really be, they're going to be proactive in this. So far, they've been very hey, let's figure out what's going on. Yeah. But in this, it seems like the next win.
I feel like so far, T'Challa and Shuri and Okoye, everybody involved so far has been gathering information and forming a strategy. And now I think next issue would be all right, let's finally be proactive and do something.
Let's go find Moon Knight or Ron, Khonshu, all of that. So Really fun issue. There's a lot of fun little, world building stuff in here, and I'm really excited to see where this goes. So that is Ultimate Black Panther #4. We've also got this 1 in 25 doily variant we're selling for $24.99.
All right, so I've got a new #1 from Image. This is Blood Squad 7 #1. And, I will say it's written by Joe Casey and the artist by Paul Fry. And I would say that I think that if the rights to Youngblood were still squarely with Image, I feel like this would just be a Youngblood book. I feel like it would be Youngblood because there's a lot of references, not like direct references to Youngblood, like Shaft and Bad Rock and all those guys, but just like a lot of callbacks to the style, like how Youngblood was, that kind of thing. And even in the afterword, like where the letters page normally would be, there's a big letter from Joe Casey, and he references Youngblood several times without mentioning the name Youngblood. But he talks about Image's first team and all that kind of stuff. So the crux of this issue is it goes back and forth between a couple of government-sponsored heroes, which is what Youngblood was. They are taking out a bunch of Russian soldiers in Ukraine, and while they're doing that, there are some government officials back in DC talking about restarting a government-sponsored superhero program from 30 years ago, and that's exactly what Youngblood was. And again, I think if Image had the rights to Youngblood, this would just be, hey, we're going to launch a new Youngblood because we had one before 30 years ago. But instead, in this, because this, I think there's a reference to Dutch. We had Dutch was a character from the 90s, had a miniseries recently, and Dutch is part of, just sort of the main Image continuity. And so I think this falls in line with it. They're just using Blood Squad 7 as a placeholder for Youngblood. We do meet a few of the heroes from the original team, the one from 30 years ago. But we don't meet any of the members of well, I guess we kind of sort of meet one member of the new team, but they're still working on putting together that new team. So we don't really see any of them yet. And one of the heroes from the original team who was in Ukraine fighting these Russian soldiers, maybe they are not all that good of a person. Like maybe they're not a superhero like they think they are, but it's really cool. I mean, the whole idea is just that there was this government sponsored superhero team 30 years ago, and they were essentially celebrities. And then for whatever reason, it didn't work out. And now the government is wanting to restart that program in modern day with new young heroes, just like it was before. That's sort of the idea of the whole thing. And this is just kind of introducing us to that world. And I just can't help but think it would have been cool if this had been Youngblood for sure. But it's a different team instead, but still really
a
cool.
bit of like Local Man and kind of
yeah,
that nod to the classic Image days.
Yeah, it definitely does have a nod to Image days. There's even a part where they're in a conference room and they are reviewing some material from the team from 30 years ago, and they watch a commercial for Blood Squad 7 action figures, and it says, coming from Todd Toys, which is, McFarlane's. And then there's a picture on the wall in there, which is the cover of Youngblood #1 with, the orange lines coming up, but it's this team, or it's the Blood Squad 7 team from back in the 90s. So they're definitely a placeholder for Youngblood for sure. But it was just really cool. I can't wait to see where this goes. We got a lot of heroes left that we have to meet that we haven't yet. So it should be cool. And that is the only cover we have. I'm not sure if this was the only cover.
It was the only cover.
Okay, cool. Yep, it was good.
Well, next up, I've got another big one in the Energon universe. It's Void Rivals issue #9. And I mean, they don't make any bones about it. They're not hiding anything. You got it right there on the cover. You have a Springer, and this is awesome. So, last we left Solila and Derek as they're trudging across. What's it called?
I don't remember.
Wasteland.
It's a big wasteland that's kind of in the middle of their two different worlds.
Yeah.
I don't remember what it's called.
They're still trekking through there, which the whole time Derek's been saying, like, I know we can do it, and, Handroid and everybody's like, technically there's no way you can survive this, but he knows something, and we kind of learn in this, he has been here before, and he doesn't quite remember because he was in a pretty bad state when he was there before, but he remembers some weird stuff, and when he woke up, he was safe. And I'm guessing he's thinking we can do that here because Solila is not doing well after the end of the last one, and he just needs help. And we might find it there. But you got to read to find out. Yes, Springer's in this. I don't want to give away how. And this has an awesome fight scene involving Springer and someone else that is really, really cool. So don't want to get into too much details, but yes, I mean, the Void Rivals is still just as important as Transformers and G.I. Joe and all of that right now. And this is setting up some really cool stuff. So we've got our A cover here, which, I mean, how can you do better than that? But we also got some variants that are very cool. We've got this Ortiz variant, and we have this 1 in 10 Aruo variant we're selling for $8.99. And we've got this 1 in 25 Wingard variant we're selling for $14.99.
Yeah, I love seeing Springer in this. I like Springer ever since the 1986 animated Transformers movie. He's cool in this. So yeah, it's a treat.
He's got a big old sword.
Yeah, oh yeah, he does. Two of them because they're his helicopter blades.
Yeah.
All right, so the next issue I have is Spectacular Spider-Man #3. This continues to be my favorite 616 Spider-Man book on the stands. It's just so much fun. And it's kind of a stealth what if book, the way I think about it, because we see Peter and Miles in situations, in personal situations that we've never seen them in before. And I won't tell you what they are, but the cover gives you a big old hint as to what Peter and Miles, what situations they may be in this issue. And you might be confused, like Peter and Gwen, what? Miles and Kamala once? I will say that when you read the issue, it makes sense. Like it's explained. There's a reason why they're showing you this on the cover. It all does make sense. I'd actually like to see these what if scenarios. I call them what if scenarios. I'd like to see them continue in like some other kind of what if book. But
especially the Spider-Man one's kind of reminiscent of Ultimate Spider-Man right now.
It is, but different.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. And I will say there's not a lot of action in this, but it's okay because all of this on the cover is really interesting. And again, when you read it, you do understand. I'll say you understand how it's happening. Well, that's what I'll say. There is an explanation for how it's going on. But yeah, just another really cool. I don't know. I just like it. I like Humberto Ramos's art,
art is
colors,
amazing.
everything about it. Yeah, it's so cool. It's just fun to see heroes in situations that you don't normally see them in.
The
right?
structure of it's really interesting because it does a lot of back and forth timeline wise, and it's a fun ride.
Yeah. That I should say that too. It does go back and forth between these weird situations and also a few days prior. I think what led them to this in the first place. So we do see that lots of questions answered. And it's cool. So we have this A cover. There is a variant that I believe is in our missing box. So we don't have that to show, but it's super cool.
Okay, next up, just briefly want to mention not Teen Titans. They're grown-ups now. It's Titans #11. And I feel like this is, they're still dealing with the big Raven story going on. But we do get the, I guess, first full appearance of this new character called Venadia. And on the cover it says, Fear the Franken-Titan. And I'll say, at least in this, that's not necessarily the case. It's not like a character that has all their powers, at least not yet. That makes me think of kind of a Mazo type thing. This character's not quite a Mazo, but we do get her backstory about why she ended up being this way and how she really idolized the Titans, but what could turn her against the Titans, who's behind it, all of that, and how does it play in with the overall Raven story. It's all here. So really interesting issue. Plus there's something with Nightwing where he's got, he's learned a lot from Batman, we'll say, even about how to process information.
Yeah.
So that is our A cover for that. And then here is our variant. This is the design variant by Lucas Mayer. And this is Venadia, as you see her in the book.
Well, speaking of Nightwing, we have Nightwing #114. This is the first part of the Fallen Grayson story arc, which is the last story arc from Tom Taylor and Bruno Redondo before they move on to something else. And in this one, the issue starts with Dick Grayson in the Snowy Mountains. I mean, just basically this cover right here. And he's up there because he says that he has lost something. And we know that he's afraid of heights now. He can't leap. He's lost that ability. And he says that to get back what he's lost, he needs to climb again. So he's going to be up in the mountains doing this. And then the rest of the issue takes place 2 weeks prior to that. We have Dick and the Bat family. Well, I guess they're still the Bat family when they're not in costume. You know,
Yeah.
Bruce and Damian and Barbara. They are hosting an event at the Alfred Pennyworth Foundation, but Heartless shows up and sows the seeds of chaos, but not in the way you might think. Not in like well, not in the way you might think. I'll say that. But yeah, just this is the first part of the last story arc for Tom Taylor and Bruno Redondo, and there's some cool like typical Bruno Redondo cool layouts and stuff. So if you're a fan of Nightwing, don't miss the beginning of the end for
Oh,
for at least Tom Taylor and Redondo. So really cool there. That's our A cover. We have some great variants. This is the Daniel Sampere variant. Nightwing in the Snowy Mountains. We do see a little bit of that in here. The amazing Dan Mora variant. I think that's the one that I pre-ordered. And then there's a 1 in 25 Campbell variant that we're selling for $24.99.
Next up for me, we've got Thundercats #4, just continuing this really fun series. And in this one, you do have the Thundercats facing off against Mum-Ra. Now, it doesn't look quite like this. Mum-Ra might come in a different disguise, but they do face off, and it's definitely, this feels like we're leading to the big end of the first story arc. Also, the truth behind Calica comes out, and what will Lion-O do about this, considering he's been so invested in Calica? Is there any hope for redemption for her, or is she just bad news? A lot of really fun stuff happens in this issue of Thundercats #4. We've also got some variants for this. So we've got the 1 in 10 Chitara character variant for $7.99. We are getting a new mini-series of the origin of Chitara coming up soon. We've got a 1 in 15 foil version of the David Nakayama A cover. And we have this 1 in 15 Towel Virgin foil variant.
All right, so next I've got Wonder Woman #9. Still a fantastic series. And this one, the Sovereign has placed Wonder Woman in solitary confinement in an effort to try to break her because the lasso of lies did not work last issue. And so this issue, every page is different. It shows what is going on in her mind, what she's doing in her own mind in order to keep herself together because she's in solitary confinement for a good while. And so what's the inside of her brain look like trying to keep her sanity? In the backup story, there's another one, with Trinity and John and Damien, and I think maybe it's the funniest one yet.
Wow.
I don't want to tell you why because there's a page turn, and when I turn the page, I audibly laughed out loud. So I don't want to say what it is, but it's funny. The whole thing is great. So just more awesome Trinity stories. But yeah, another good issue. We have our A cover right here. Got some cool variants. This is our Tedesco variant. And then we have a 1 in 25 Sampere variant. It's the Virgin version of the A cover that we're selling for $24.99. Actually, see, I didn't think about this. That the cover sort of makes sense now. With
Okay.
he's trying to make her go crazy, but she's not having. I don't know. It just sort of makes sense.
Okay. It's a very cool cover, though.
Yeah.
Next up, I've got Fall of the House of X #5. This is the final issue of this miniseries. We still have the Rise of Powers of 10 #5, and then Uncanny X-Men that's going to wrap everything up. But my only notes for this is it wraps up a lot. You deal a lot with the X-Men versus Orcus. You've got Storm coming in there. You've got their fight with Nimrod. And if you're a Cyclops and Jean fan, even though they're not together in this, there is a great moment kind of reflecting on them that, is super, super nice to wrap this up. But we'll have the official wrap up of this very, very soon. But this closes out this mini-series. So we got that cover. And then we have this Aka variant.
My last book is a really fun one. This is Justice League versus Godzilla versus Kong #7. This is the final issue of this really fun series. I can't really tell you much about it because it's the end and I don't want to spoil anything, but I will say there is a lot of just big, fun action there's monsters and there's Justice League and everybody's fighting everybody, and it's just so good. The artwork is great too. And I will say that there is something that happens in this that is ridiculous in the best way possible. It's just so cool to see. This is what comic books should be, basically.
Yeah.
Just these big, ridiculous action, fun artwork, all that stuff. So if you've been reading this series, do not miss the last issue because it is great. So we have our A cover right there, and there's some cool covers too. There's a nice Jim Lee cover, just Justice League fighting big old monsters. We have this really cool Dan Mora variant with Mecha Godzilla. We have a 1 in 25 Janin variant that we're selling for 25 or $24.99, $25. And then there's a 1 in 50 limb variant that we're selling for $45.99.
And lastly for me, I have Star Wars issue 46. So we are like getting close to the end of this story arc, the trial of Lando Calrissian. But what's really interesting in this one is Mon Mothma, who got kidnapped in previous issues. They kind of threw a wrench in the whole trial of Lando. We actually see who kidnapped her, and it's a new character named Hachi. And she's not your normal criminal. She's not there to interrogate Mon Mothma. She's actually there to kind of interview her in a very interesting way. And it's a great scene. But we will be wrapping up this story, I believe, the next issue. So just want to let you know that is the Star Wars book that came out this week. And we also have this really fun episode 1 variant.
There's always a bigger fish.
There's always bigger fish. And that is it for our big comic review video. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you learned a little bit along the way and you're better prepared when you head to your local comic book store or you go online to infinityflux.net and shop. You know what you're in store for and what you might want to try out or what you should be excited for. Leave us an emoji of a.
Well, we like Spider-Gwen so much. Is there like a ballerina or a dancer?
There is a spider and a ghost.
Okay,
or a
perfect.
ghost and then a spider to
yeah,
make even more sense.
That's perfect. Yeah.
Leave that to let us know you made it to the end of the video. We've got a lot of great stuff planned for very, very soon. Now that we're post-free comic book day, we can kind of get some of our other plans rolling that had to be put on the side because of how big free comic book day was. But just stay tuned because you're not gonna believe it.
The world will never be the same.
The Marvel universe will be shaken to its core.
Right.
But anyways, thank you so much for watching. We've got our show coming up on Wednesday. We'll be going over some of the books that you can pre-order by this weekend so you don't miss out on any of those good stuff. And until next time,
See ya.
I'll see you.